If your bullpen arms weren't making you
So
nervous,
let's
they'd probably be starters, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly right.
let's uh let's reel back and look at this team right now. What's your general feeling on this bullpen? I mean, they've been really good since the trade deadline, with a few exceptions, a few blips. Is this bullpen ready to handle the high leverage and high stress moments of the playoffs? Like, do you feel comfortable with Romano, Garcia, and Bass Meza going into the playoffs right now?
Romano, 100%. I think every closer in baseball goes through blips. I think the weird part is
Mm-hmm.
I should even rephrase that. I think every reliever in baseball goes
Yeah.
through peaks and valleys. I think the weird part is like three or four of their high leverage guys all went through a little valley at the exact same time. And
Yes.
that doesn't happen so often. And it's also a part of the year when we're all paying attention quite a bit. So I like the bullpen. Yes, like I agree with people who say it'd be nice if they had more swing and miss. That's also like what every team is looking for. And I think the swing and miss guys are very expensive. The Dodgers have the luxury of being able to sign Blake Trinan to a 2-year, $18 million deal or whatever it was, or
Yeah.
to be a setup guy, and that's a great luxury to have. And like, yeah, it'd be great if our team is right at the top in payroll, but I mean, when you're not a $250 million payroll, like you need to make decisions. And the Blue Jays have made a decision in the last 2 or 3 years to operate at the top of the free agent market for a Springer, for a Ryu, and that comes with trade-offs. And so the trade-off is you try to find value in bullpens. And so that means that means you're going to have a Simber in your bullpen instead of a guy that throws 96 or 97. So like I think they've done a nice job, and I really like what
Mm-hmm.
Pete Walker and Matt Bushman have done. It's a above average bullpen. So, you're
I
going to
would
have
say the same. Yeah.
you're going to have nervy moments with those guys, especially in the biggest moments. The biggest moments come playoff time. So, like, I really, really like Bass. I think he's, that swing that Arozarena put on the other day. What are you going to do? He doesn't hit breaking balls very well, and he hit one right down the line and right. Like that's going to happen. I like Bass. I like Romano. Garcia, it's almost felt a little like when you look at his numbers for the fastball, it's like, whoa, the fastball hasn't been that good for him all year long. I didn't realize it. It didn't feel, I don't know. It felt like, it seemed like there should be a little bit of a correction, which kind of came. So for me, I like Bass's stuff a little bit better than Garcia's. So, but I know that they don't necessarily feel that way, and the numbers
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily reflect that. But so yeah, I put my highest confidence in Romano and Bass, and I've liked what I've seen from Mesa. The arm's kind of firing back up a little bit. It
Yeah,
seemed
it is.
a little flat when he first came back, and it seems like the velo's coming back. So if he can get guys out, if he can get lefties out, then yeah, like they're gonna have nervy moments. But the thing that I always try to remind people is like if you were a fan of another team, that bullpen would be making you nervous too. Bullpens make people nervous. It's just
Yes.
we don't notice the other bullpens making other fan bases nervous.
If your bullpen arms weren't making you
So
nervous,
let's
they'd probably be starters, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly right. Like both, and it's in they're if they're coming in and we're paying attention, that means they're coming in very high leverage moments. So like they're coming in moments that are bound to make us nervous. So one walk makes us nervous.
I just want to jump in
well,
and
I know
quickly
North
ask Scott
North
before you get to this. While we're on the topic of Mesa and left-handed bullpen arms, we did see Matt Gage up earlier in the year. Why hasn't he come back to this team?
I don't know. I don't know exactly. I think they have the one counter is I think they have guys that they think they can get lefties out from the right side. So I think they would view it as like we don't need a lefty if we've got righties that can get lefties out. Gage feels, I don't know what the right word is. He certainly performed when he was here, so I think it's a nice insurance policy to have. But I just think he wouldn't. I don't think they'd trust him over one of their best righties to get guys out.
Mhm.
And I think so. Maybe to answer your question is, in the previous world where there wasn't a 3-batter minimum, maybe he'd be at the back end of the bullpen. You could bring him out to get a guy that really struggles against lefties. But in a world where there's the 3-batter minimum, maybe he's not needed as much. But
Odd man
you're
out.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right in that he performed when he was here. So listen, I think he's put himself in position to kind of compete for something come next year, but it just seems like for whatever reason he's not in the cards this year.
So Northern Growler in the YouTube chat here says bullpen arms can be hit or miss year to year.
Yep.
Can you see Trevor Richards rebounding? I love that changeup so, man. It is just filthy, and I can see him being a major contributor next year, and I love that they've got term on that guy. What is your thoughts on Trevor Richards?
Yeah, I'm a Richards fan. I'm a guy who believes in weapons over anything else, and that changeup is a weapon. It's one of the best pitches on the team.
Yes.
Yeah. And he got killed early on with some bad batted ball luck, with maybe some pitch mix stuff and just locating fastball. I think he had trouble with. So, but I like his stuff. I think he's learning to kind of figure out when teams are really looking change up. And I think we saw him the other day. Was Rosarena, he struck out, kind of surprising him with the fastball up at the top of the zone. I like him. He hasn't had a great year, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't give up on him. And if you non-tendered him tomorrow or in the offseason, some team would pick him up for sure.
Instantly.
Yeah.
He just needs to locate his fastball a little better. It's been an odd year because it's so funny because Richards was truly a medium to high leverage guy last year, and people just seem to forget about that. You know, it's so easy to turn on a bullpen arm because they are, like you said, peaks and valleys, and sometimes
it doesn't take much. Sorry, it doesn't take much to really throw your numbers off when you're a bullpen guy. One really ugly thing, and you're kind of you're fighting it for the next 6 weeks to try and bring your numbers back down. It's not like an excuse for him. Like he didn't pitch well the first half of the year, but yeah, like I said, like I like his stuff. And the other thing to like keep in mind is, and we've had this conversation about a few different players and not just pitchers. If you look at lots of good players and pitchers, if you look at, as you referred to the other day, like or earlier, the back of their baseball card, like guys will go through bad years. Like it can happen sometimes. And we don't know. And again, I sound like I'm making excuses, but you never know what's going on. Some guy could be fighting an arm thing. Some guy could be going through a divorce. Some guy and it could throw off your whole year. So I don't think you give up on a guy just for having one off year. Again, especially if there's weapons that are so clearly visible. If a guy was just 92, 93 with a so-so breaking ball, yeah, then you might look elsewhere. And he's approaching 30 or whatever Trevor is. But when the changeup so obviously can be an elite pitch, then yeah, I think it makes sense to try and figure it out with him.
And we'll move on from Trevor Richards, but Dolchmerist in the chat here brings up a good point. He says nobody noticed the 20 or so appearances in a row where he had around a 1.5 ERA and a whip around 1. And that's true, right? It's so easy to point to the negative.
Yeah, but like the counter is like that's kind of what elite guys should do. So like that's what good relievers do, is they do perform for 3 weeks or a month at a time. But so it's good for him to see that, or it was good for us to see that from him. But yeah, like I said, I think I am certainly buying Richard stock for next year.